Good morning, LinkedIn, and everybody if there is anybody watching on YouTube and Facebook. I am just coming on early so that we can get the link happening and get things organized. And soon I will be bringing Jay Johnson on to have a wonderful conversation with me. So just to start off with, I would love to just share with you I actually heard a new phrase this week, and I don't know why I haven't heard it or coined it myself, but edutainment is a new word that I have come across. And, something about learning and taking on other people's experience. We have many theory books available to us. There's much theory we can research online. But delivering learning in a way that is also entertaining is really the way of the future. And so I bring these conversations mainly because I've been lucky enough to work with some incredible leaders over the years. And I have always wanted to bring some of that knowledge and some of that experience to as many people as possible. And the beautiful thing about LinkedIn Live and Facebook Live and all of these wonderful tools that are available to us now is that we can do that. So very blessed to have a network of incredible leaders who are able to bring some really great insights to you, but with a little bit of an entertaining flavor. So that's a great thing about what we're doing here. And beyond that, I am building this platform, this membership, which is all about the same. So it is education through an entertaining medium. So, you're still going to learn, or you will learn huge amounts listening to the different conversations that I'm having in there and the videos that I'm producing in there around leadership and everything that goes with it. So I would love you to give it a try. There will be a link coming into the feed later on, which will give you access to have a look around this membership for a month for free, for no cost. And there are some fabulous conversations in there. There's some really powerful learnings in there, and a wonderful community as well. So I'm still so thrilled to be bringing this, and it's only going to get better and more wonderful with time. So now, for today, I would love you to firstly let me know that you are there. So please let us know. It's kind of strange sitting when you're just talking, feel like you might be talking to yourself. So do share with us that you're there. Let us know where you're watching from. And let us know whether you're watching the live or you're watching the recording. So that would be fabulous. The second thing I would love you to do is get involved with the conversation. So I bring you these not just so that we can talk to you, but that we can talk with you. So I'd really love you to feel confident, step in, pop any questions or any comments you have into the feed so that we can respond to you throughout the conversation that we're having here today. Hi, Phil. How are you? Philip's on. So I've got one comment so far. I'm just going to set up my feed so that I can see what's going on LinkedIn. And hopefully the link will be there for everybody as well. And then I think we are ready to bring Jay Johnson into the feed. So Jay is going to join us now, and I know I'll tell you a little bit about him.
Good morning
Jay,
or good afternoon. How is everybody doing? Thank you. Good to be here.
Now, I am going to talk about you for a moment, if you don't mind just listening to that. I'm just, getting all my live feeds running here so I know what's going on.
It won't be painful, will it?
It won't be painful talking about you, or it could be. All right, so just a little bit about Jay. good fortune, positive attitude, and enthusiastic approach to life with a mature tenacity to achieve, combined with personality style, which creates a comfortable but confident aura to engage with everyone. That's a great way of describing Jay. The He's the founder and director of Pelorus International, a Melbourne, Australia-based firm, a successful sales and marketing consultancy to the IT and communications sales organizations on sales growth planning and effectiveness. Jay brings a fresh perspective to business and is a respected consultant, coach, and facilitator and speaker on sales effectiveness. He has I always find it hard when I'm reading because I want to look at the audience and I'm reading at the same time. Sorry, everybody. Jay brings a fresh perspective to business as respected consultant, coach, facilitator, and speaker on sales effectiveness. He's brought pragmatic and honest value during all his consulting and advisory engagements while facilitating planning and training sessions across Asia Pac. And he's got proven expertise, insights, and experience in sales, marketing, and channels. And has helped companies develop and generate incremental, profitable revenue and relationship growth. Now, Jay comes from, he's got a successful corporate career prior to going into the consulting world. And he worked with technology sales organizations, beginning with IBM, and he achieved management positions from branch manager, regional manager, right through to VP of sales for North America, and various appointments in ANZ and on a national level. So, and we should just mention as well that Jay's originally from Boston, has been in Australia for a very long time, made his home here in Melbourne in 1991, and he loves AFL and NFL. So just got to get that in there. That's a really important point. But Jay's been consulting and mentoring people for over 20 years now in the capacity of Pelorus International, and so has some wonderful insights and experience to share with us. And hopefully we'll share some of his story with us as well. So welcome again.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Now, I always like to find out how someone got into, how they got into leadership in the first place. So tell us a bit about how you got into leadership.
Well, thanks, Rebecca, for inviting me to attend this morning. And for everybody that's online or watching or viewing or listening this morning, it's a pleasure to be here. It was also a little humbling to be listening to the bio, listening to somebody tell me about the bio. That's quite an interesting twist. But anyway, thanks for doing that. Thanks for the opportunity. And for the next 30 minutes, I guess I can share with you from in a personal perspective as to what leadership means to me and how it's meant to me during the last many years, as Rebecca pointed out, as to what I was doing in the career. But the question that she just answered, I'm sure that many of you had, is, with the accent, where you're from. So I am originally from the Boston area. I grew up there, I was educated there, and my career with IBM did begin in the Beantown area that many years ago. But when we were chatting about leadership the other day, and it reminded me that maybe sometimes none of us really have a chance to look back at our careers and analyze or assess it as much as or often as we would like to have. But I did start at a very early age with Blue, and I actually got into the sales role with Big Blue or IBM back in, and that was my first role. So just a mere 4 years later, amongst my peers who had been there much longer than I had, I was fortunate enough to be selected to my first management job. So that moved me into my first, I guess you could say, leadership position. I was 26 years old. I had been with IBM for about 4 years, and then they moved me as a marketing manager, sales manager, down to Baltimore, Maryland. So I went from being, a local guy, having a lot of good fun, making the numbers, achieving all the recognition as one would in sales with IBM, making the clubs. And now I woke up one morning and I am in Baltimore, Maryland, in the city of Baltimore, which I didn't know much about, And I now have a team of 14 people to manage, to lead through the next couple of years. So, I mean, if I was an expert in leadership, I probably wouldn't be here today. You'd probably be reading my book, which I didn't write. So, but anyway, so I persevered, but I was fortunate to be in a corporation in those early years of my career where their commitment to development was significant. And I think everybody that may be on today, the one thing we all know about IBM, or at least remember about the reputation that IBM had, was they invested in their people and their development, no matter what your role was. So I was very fortunate to really start to understand what leadership was really all about when I was thrust into this management role. And now I've got 14 sets of eyes on a daily basis waiting to see exactly how I would either succeed or fail at the job. I was fortunate enough to be able to travel back and forth during development to meet a number of the leaders of the IBM Corporation, as well as customers at the executive level. So I began to understand a little bit more about, from a management to what leadership was, what those characteristics were. I stayed with Big Blue for the next decade, and then and around the Washington, D.C. area, I was actually promoted onto staff as a leader in one of the market segments of banking and finance. And it was quite a great experience. Walking up and down Pennsylvania Avenue in front of the White House every day to make management calls was quite a fascinating development. But I was surrounded by senior management. And again, another level of proviso to me that helped me understand, well, what do you really need to do to develop in terms of becoming a better manager to leader? And what was the differentiators? So anyway, I stayed with them until I was then recruited to one of Wall Street's favorite high-tech companies back in when office automation and networking was just getting off the ground, and it was a Boulder-based company. So I got tagged along and go over to Alexandria, Virginia, and became the branch manager over there. And again, another team in another company, another culture. But it did give me the opportunity to implement and apply some of all the things I had learned at Big Blue. And now I was out there a little bit exposed, leaving a big corporation like IBM, like many of you would know, or many of you may have done, that, it's a sort of an indoctrinated environment. So it was like, I've got to relive my life a little bit, or relearn my business living outside of the Blue environment, which was great. So I stayed with them. After a couple of years as the branch commercial manager there, and I led a team of about 15 people there in that branch. And then the development that we put into play in terms of strategic planning that, again, aligning to the management of that national organization was quite a learning experience for me too. But then all of a sudden, one day I was out in Boulder, Colorado, and we were at a manager's meeting. And the president, who was a guy, ex-Blue Storage Technology founder, he came up to me and he said, "We have a distributor and they're based in Sydney. And they heard that you went to Australia once." And I said, "Yes, I did." They said, "Well, they wanted to know if we would let you go for 2 years to run or open up and help run and expand and grow the division of our products and services, which was a software-based network system." And I said, "Sure, I'll go down and give it a shot." So I hopped a plane and I showed up in Sydney, and I was there on contract with directly reporting to the Sydney executive and indirectly reporting back into Boulder, Colorado, to the director of international sales. Mm-hmm. So here's another example of what I think developing leadership insight is so important, because today, what I learned then was now I'm in a different country, but I'm also within a different business environment culturally. Yeah. So it was just a great opportunity to understand even more deeply whether I would fit, number one. Number two, how did they culturally deliver leadership in Australia at the time versus to what I had become used to and what I had learned in my US experiences. So anyway, I was down there for a couple of years. I went. It was a national role. It was a terrific role. I met a terrific amount of people, and I still stay in touch with a number of them in the IT industry here in Oz, including one of the industry's guru, Mr. Len Rust, and I met him first off the plane when he was running IDC. So then I took on a role. I married a lady that I met down here. We went back to the United States, and then I opened up a recruitment company as a member of their team. I became a partner. I did that for a couple of years in the state of California. And while I was doing that, I met a number of guys that were independent executives, and they had been tapped on the shoulder by a Japanese technology firm. And so I was invited to join them to start the U.S. subsidiary. And my role was taking on the North American sales opportunity. So then I went from Australia back into the U.S. and then I took on the North American sales opportunity, which was great. It was a lot of fun. And again, then I was able to compare my leadership style as I was developing it even further with, driving the charismatic side to the social to the business measurement side. And that went very well. And then all of a sudden we got transferred back to Australia because my wife was working for digital. They promoted her. I said goodbye to the boys and girls there, and then we moved back to Australia. And then that's the year that I started Pelorus International.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So anyway,
thank you for that. And wow, what a journey! My goodness. And so, I mean, I've got a whole lot of questions. And let me just, before I jump into a couple of questions, just acknowledge the people who are acknowledging us in the chat. So thank you so much. Hi, Christian. We've got Mike Davies on. Hi, Mike. We've got Marcello here from the US, from Atlanta. Shrikanth, hi, how are you? And Shruti is also here. And there's someone who's Isabel. Isabel, welcome as well. So thank you for acknowledging that you're here, guys. Would love any questions that you have for us as we're moving through. I have some questions at this point. And so you moved into, one of the things I think that just came up for me while you were telling your story is an incredible amount of awareness. So where did this awareness come from? Because I think, for me, when I moved into leadership, it took a while for me to really find that awareness and start, almost looking at it from another perspective. I was just so busy doing. So I'm interested to know, where do you think that awareness came from and how important was it to you throughout your career?
I think it was an evolutionary or evolving process. I think all of us as individuals we all have a makeup and an innate ability to learn and become aware as whatever role or the position that we're playing in business. And I think that was probably one of the most important things for me, because I was surrounded very early in my career by people who I believed were much better than I was. They were either not necessarily older, but they were experienced. I looked at it with a little bit of intimidation at times. But I put forth enough energy at each stage to create that light bulb effect. Okay, I just realized that I am at least aware of these issues that I face, either personal or business. The awareness comes from the evidence and feedback. And one example would have been, in IBM particularly, as in many high technology companies, performance evaluations are a real critical component of development. And in Big Blue, one of the early stages of becoming aware of where I might have been on the ladder of leadership development was through the feedback I listened to and got regularly from my peers, as well as the people that reported to me. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty humbling experience when you know that people have just taken a significant amount of time to fill out a particular survey that actually describes your habits, your behaviors, good and bad, as a manager. And so that was another light bulb awakening area. And I've sort of used that a, a little bit more frequently than I may realize over the years in different roles to continue to make myself tested aware. So
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
probably one of the biggest points in my career, though.
Yeah, okay. So there's two big things there. One is being aware, and the second one is being open to and accepting and doing something with feedback. So actually taking action on that.
Exactly. I think as we all, as leaders in whatever roles that each of you play, I think that's one of the most challenging parts of leadership today is becoming aware of the fact that you've got your own awareness and then you've got other people's to be responsible for and aware of. And that challenge, that's an individual style almost aspect. But I think it's one of the most fun parts of being in leadership. And I think it sort of rolls naturally if you, as you pointed out, Rebecca, if the awareness levels are strong enough and clear enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so you've been coaching and mentoring and consulting to businesses specifically around sales and channel programs and that sort of thing. Is that correct for the last 20 odd years?
I want to say hello to the guy in Atlanta. You've been on the news quite frequently recently. But to answer your question, I decided back in 2017 that I thought, well, maybe it was time to go back to the United States because I have children back there and my family is still back there. So I decided to move to the Tampa Bay area, and I started a consulting practice back there. I actually met a few people that through a series of discussions with them, they invited me to join the National Association of Retired Executives called SCORE to become a mentor to entrepreneurial and startup or struggling businesses. And so I spent the last couple of years prior to my return to Melbourne in January 2020, specifically involved in the mentoring process for business people. Not and the interesting part of that, to many of you watching that are not necessarily part of the IT industry, I learned an awful lot about many different industries and the executive thinking process about how to mentor, and where some of the skills that I had learned in my career in terms of every role in IT, which I truly believe is probably the most fascinating and highest paced industry in the world. But I was able to meet a lot of executives, owners of businesses, and I was, again, humbled at many times, thinking that I didn't know as much as they did. They were in their business and they were in a different industry. I didn't know anything about them. But it was a mutual exchange of knowledge that I'd learned to be able to now apply to the mentoring process. So I was able to work in aged care development, into electronics of some sort that I couldn't even describe. It was even to a couple of women that were starting a green graveyard. And so I helped them put together their business plan, but it was a fascinating role. But then I came back to get back into Melbourne.
Yeah, okay. So you have had a flavor of leadership, mentoring. I mean, obviously, leadership involves mentoring as well. I've just noticed a big question come up in the chat. So, do you mind if I just jump to that for a second? So, Sam
Sure.
McCready has said, Jay, I have a question, and it directly relates to the cultural differences between Australia and the United States you mentioned. I'm from Australia originally, however, now in Atlanta, in the United States, and managing a team of technical individuals. What are some key areas you noticed when managing people in both countries, and any points of differential that are important to note? Hi, Sam, by the way. Over to
I
you,
think
Jay.
that's a great question, and I love Atlanta. I think if you're assuming that you're working with an IT company down there, I've never held a position of managing the technology side or the technical side of the business. But I think the distinctions between managing a group of technical people versus here would probably not be that variable. I think that they would be looking for you to show the evidence that you know what the issue is that they have that's not related back to Australia. That said, I think using your examples of some of your business accolades here would help a group of American group, whether they're a combination of technical or whatever, to basically understand that you have a depth of knowledge that they don't have, and or a depth of experience that the Australian culture can help them, even if they don't know it or they don't see it, but they will expect you to sort of deliver that. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense to you or not, but culturally, you know that we slap five between the Yanks and the Aussies. We've got a great relationship. There's a lot of mutual respect there. You've probably seen that since you've arrived. But I think that they probably put you on a higher pedestal of scrutiny too, to understand how much smarter do you think you are compared to them. But I think that that would be a fun thing for you to manage too. But I suspect that you won't find a lot of difficulty in that. I hope that answers a little bit of your question.
That was great. Thank you. I'll wait for Sam to let us know if that covers it. That makes me it makes me think about, the concept of diversity and how important that is in businesses and how valuable it can be to businesses in terms of the different learnings you can take from different experiences, not just in countries, but in life, and in work. And I think, I always say, diversity drives innovation. You can't have innovation without some sort of diversity. So,
Exactly.
yeah,
I
so I
agree
think
with you. I
mm,
agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that's an advantage. The leadership that we have here in Australia does have a little bit of a opportunity beyond where the American leadership does come from. And I'm not saying that we both countries don't have great leaders in particular groups, whether it be political or non. But I think what we've got here was we have a tendency to understand the global issues much faster than, say, the American leadership. There's a myopic view too often
mm,
that we don't seem to have down here as much. And we look at things, I think, more easily without intimidation to the global sense of it, because we are who we are down here,
mm,
and we've done well bringing our country against not against, but with, in global terms, a significant reputation and recognition
yeah,
in a global world.
mm,
More important now, I think, than ever, because we transfer back and forth. We've got leaders here gone to the US or UK
yeah,
and vice versa. But I
yeah.
think we have got that opportunity of globally, our leadership has a global perspective much faster and much more deeply applied than I've seen in the US, generally
Yeah,
speaking.
yeah. Absolutely. Well, that's a great insight because I haven't worked in the US. So, and Sam says thank you. So I assume that he's happy with that response. And I think, as well, from what you said about the team, putting you on a higher pedestal, having expectations, when you move into any leadership role, it's about building trust, and you've got to work out how you build that trust very quickly. And in order to build trust, you must open up to a two-way scenario. So show them that you have trust in what they know as well. And there's power in letting them teach you, and being open to that as well.
That's an excellent point, and I know that there are several people on the session this morning that I know that would probably support this. But the trust issue is, in my view, based upon my career experience working with other leaders, some come across very quickly where you have a belief mechanism in place with them, and the immediacy of trust starts to evolve. There are others out there that are in leadership roles that find it a little bit more difficult to engage and create that trust.
Mm,
But to succeed in leadership here, I believe that we all have got to find that special characteristic that engenders trust quickly, even
mm,
if it's evidenced by the behavior, the way to communicate, or behave in a meeting, whatever the case may be. If communication is a critical element of the characteristic of a good leader, one of the things that I have really focused on in my ability to try to understand it as well as deliver it is the skill to be articulate. And how much I've been surprised, no matter whether it was US and when I was mentoring over there or I was mentoring over here, but I've been often surprised at the reactions, which are positive, or comments that'll come back to me that'll say, you speak, and they'll explain it, how they've heard me speak or how it is. And I'm no different than everybody else out there, but it does make a difference to a lot of people's ear when it comes across, it's clear, it's concise. And as a leader of people, that engenders trust.
Yeah.
And in my view, it contributes to engendering, because the belief mechanisms start to click in quickly. And that really starts to build that basis around the trust area.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And just a quick comment from me on a book that I really enjoyed, which was the Stephen Covey, Speed of Trust. I don't know if you've read that, but that's a fantastic book around some of the elements that you can use to build trust and some of the really important aspects.
Right.
Yeah.
He's good. He's worth reading.
Yeah. Well, so he was the son of the original Stephen Covey. So there's a Stephen. One of them has an initial. I can't remember which one. Yeah.
The dad. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a great book. Yeah. But
now I've got two questions here from Srikanth. He says, what qualities of leadership do you think is unique to you, and what aspect of leadership do you consciously continue to practice consistently? That's a great question. They're two great questions.
Yeah, let me try. Can you repeat the first part? I got the second part.
Yeah. So what qualities of leadership do you think are unique to you?
Yeah. Okay.
And the second one was, do you want that as well? No?
Yeah.
I'll come back to that. I was going to say, what aspects of leadership, what aspect of leadership do you consciously continue to practice consistently?
As far as the attributes that I believe that I've developed, that I am conscious about, and to your model the other day, we talked about the conscious competency model. I believe that my first quality is that ability to engage with people, to create that trust. And that quality you could put down to the confidence in the way that I deliver my own messages, or the confidence that I have built to engage and communicate well with people quickly. I think the ethical part comes into play. I have a high value system, and I think people will recognize that in a very short period of involvement with me, anyway, whether it's written or verbal. I value the fact that leadership, and I practice this, consistently, and I consistently practice it now, is the ethical behavior that leaders have to engender to create the honesty and then the trust and behind it. Behind that, I think that every day I pick up something, and I'm a constant sponge of absorbing, because we see a lot of difficulties in leadership at the moment, in political or other, where the ethics, the lack of communication, the honesty, that's, to me, it's just the basics around it. And so I try to practice that. To the question, the second part of the question, I am consciously practicing that in everything I do. And I think that, and I know that somebody's online that he'll recognize this statement, but we all have our own style. And I can't educate or edutain, to use your new term, anyone that doesn't have the mindset in leadership to be open enough to take on new thinking. And so I practice that all the time. How can I learn more to be of better value to my people, to my peers, to my customers, and to my family? I mean, because it does come down to the family too. So those are the four qualities that I really look for in a leader anyway, that I've practiced. All right.
Mm.
I don't have them all. I'm assuming, but there's enough of them out there that I can't. I had a very, very dear friend of mine who's since passed away, who said to me once, you know something, it's really nice to be able to see somebody that you can get to trust because you never meet a stranger. And I
Right.
said, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Okay. I like it.
Uh,
Now,
Yeah. Well,
Srikanth has actually had to leave the conversation, so I will send him a copy of that wonderful answer. I'll make sure I send him a link afterwards to watch that response to his questions as well. But we have actually hit 12:01, and I feel like we've barely touched the surface.
wow.
Um, so I yeah.
Wow.
So I acknowledge everybody who's here watching. Thank you so much. I have one more question for you, Jay, and that is if you only could leave one piece of advice for upcoming leaders or for leaders, and maybe in bearing in mind that we've had such a shift in how leaders need to look at things moving forward, and that's a conversation we can have on another day. But what would be your advice? What would be the one piece of advice that you would leave?
Um, I would probably, from a leadership perspective, say that the way that we will continue to provide that exact skill, let's just
Mhm,
say, is to be able to have the most open of minds, the most deliberate confidence without ego,
mhm,
in a deliberate manner of communicating honestly and openly with everyone.
mhm, mm. Wow, that's fantastic. So a big splash of responsibility in that. So taking on responsibility to be aware and deliberate about what you do as a person and a
Yeah.
leader. Yeah.
To your point a moment ago, I mean, we could outline, as you've done in other sessions, the traits that are critical. But I believe that those that we've talked about, just and I've answered that question too. Hopefully, that we're in a new world, and leadership now is going to be redefined. And I think these sessions that you're putting together are extraordinarily of great timing. And I hope that we all be able to learn more and more. It's a journey along life's business road. And, nobody knows everything. I certainly don't. So I'm learning every day. And I hope that that'll be the case. I'm looking forward to continuing to join you. So thank you to everybody that came on today. Thanks for your attention.
Yeah, and thank you so much. Just what I would love to do, Jay, is in the next week, we'll sit down and we can drill into some of these specific areas and we'll put that into the membership environment. So there'll be some very specific, tips and I think teachings that people can take with them. So I'd love to do that with you in the next little while.
Sounds great. Great.
Mm.
Great.
Awesome. All right. So thank you
Thank
so
you
much
again.
to everybody. And thank you so much to Jay. It's been fantastic. And I'm going to, I'll just take you out of the stream again now, say farewell. And I will just close off with everybody here.
See ya. Thank you.
So thank you, everybody. Another great conversation. Hopefully you got some value and some great insights out of that. I do love this term edutainment. I keep mixing it up. And being able to learn through story is really, really powerful. And so I look forward to bringing you more people soon. Next week, I have Pen Lewin from Microsoft. Pen runs a team around new ways of working, modern workplace in Microsoft. So, and she has a fabulous career history, and will come on and talk to us about some of her experience and challenges and lessons, and possibly some of the things that Microsoft are doing to help as well. So, looking forward to seeing everyone next week. In the meantime, please do jump in, have a look around, and use the free month that I'm offering you for early bird. And I look forward to hopefully seeing you in the membership, but I will definitely see you back here next week. All right, take care.